sure. Look how cool these apples are. I got them in the wild today at the IGI.
What are they?
I don't know. Apples.
Okay.
They're probably, I'm assuming that they are some sort of, I think, what did they say? They said they were golden delicious, right? So I'm assuming a wild golden delicious is going to be, actually I haven't even tried it. Maybe I should try them before I put them in this dish. Oh, those are going to be perfect.
Oh, good.
I can't believe that's a wild apple. Oh my God. It's so good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's like perfect inside.
Yeah, gorgeous. Okay, so let's officially start. This is
Right.
Julian Monroe of the Edgartown Library, and so happy to revive the Chef Look Cooks show with Chris Look. And you know what he's making today? Fabulous pumpkin apple mac and cheese. Any way you put that, it sounds delicious. So take it away, Chris.
Hi, guys, welcome everybody. I'm so happy you could all make it. I went ahead and started cooking the pasta just because of the way we have this set up. I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing in the other pan. And my electric stove has a broken burner that either goes on or off. So that's the one I usually boil water for my pasta. So that's in there right now. Most pasta is usually about 12 minutes for cooking. We're gonna do this for 8. I'm actually gonna set a timer right now so we don't forget about it. And the reason we're gonna do it for such a short amount of time, usually you do like maybe a minute off or 2, but we're gonna go take a full 4 minutes off that cook time because we want it to be pretty hard still. Not uncooked, we want to still be able to, get our teeth through it, but this sauce is going to help it cook in the oven. Another trick that's very similar to that, a lot of lasagna recipes, if you've never tried, they have this whole like new craze of no bake lasagna, but honestly, almost all lasagna can be no bake. You can put those hard shells right in there. If you use a really watery sauce, those shells are going to absorb the liquid while you cook. Usually you end up cooking it at a lower temperature and then finish it high to get that nice crispy bubbly top. But you can cook your pasta noodles right in the lasagna as long as you have enough sauce in there. You basically are just have to hydrate them enough, which doesn't take that much. Most lasagna noodles, I think it's like 2 tablespoons will hydrate one. So as long as you have enough liquid in there, it'll suck it up. You actually get a nice, more dense product than if you're using wet noodles, because wet noodles tend to be a little slippery. So give it a try next time if you feel adventurous. Just make sure you don't use like a really thick meat sauce. That's usually going to work a lot better with like a really thin vegetable sauce or like a homemade sauce that you've like blended up. So it's like, fully liquid. That way all the liquid can just sort of get at those noodles. So pasta's going. We're going to just sort of jump right in here, guys. This recipe is a little bit more simple than some of the stuff I've done in the past, but it's got a couple steps that may be new to some of you. And it's sort of a laid back recipe. You can cook this recipe in 20 minutes, if you really need to, if you have any help, that's even better. You can have somebody make the sauce while you do the vegetables, and then the pasta is just like on another burner going while you're going. But I really like this too, because if you have the time and you're just sort of hanging out with your friends, you can just take the time, take the full hour to do it, really caramelize those onions, let them go, talk, have a beer, do whatever you want to do. You don't have to rush it, but you can rush it. It's really nice. That's why mac and cheese in general is so good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with some butter, 2 tablespoons. And since I'm here, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut my 2 tablespoons for later that we're gonna be using for our bechamel. And then I'll keep the other butter just in case. Sometimes my cast iron can be a little bit thirsty and it'll take some fat and the pan will get dry. So what I'll do is I'll just toss a little more butter in there. If that happens, it's like it's a little hot, let's turn you down. If you can hear your butter, that means your pan is too hot. You do not want to brown your butter here. You want to brown your onions. The butter is going to help in that process, but we don't want brown butter. We want brown onions. So if you can hear your butter, which I can do right now, that's a bad thing. It's okay. I mean, a little brown butter is not going to kill you, but we're just going to get that going. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my onions right now, just while that's melting. So let me just show you what we're doing down here. Beautiful. So I just took the top end off and then root end. And you guys who have seen this before have seen me cut an onion maybe about 100 times. But hey, you're gonna see it 102 times now. So I cut this with the root end on. I'd normally do that if I was going to make a really fine dice on this, but I'm actually not. So I'm actually going to cut that root end off. That was a mistake on my part, but that's okay. I'm going to cut that root end off. What that's going to do is it's going to free up the slices. So it's just going to make it easier for us to separate them later. If you wanted to keep that root end on, the reason you do that is because it will hold everything together. And usually you want to hold things together if you're making fine dice. And if you've ever had this happen, I'm sure if you cook a lot, you have. You're trying to cut up your onion and the pieces just start slipping all over the place. The solution to that is to leave the root end on, and you might waste a little bit more onion. But if you're really going for that, like small brunoise is usually the term for that small dice. If you're really going for that, that is your best way to assure it happens. So we're going to julienne this, but we want it to be in fairly small pieces because we really do want, I'm just going to take that off the heat because I don't want it to brown too much. We want it to be bite-sized, basically. Everything in this dish should be bite-sized. Just to show you the cavatappi that I'm using, I'm just going to take a piece out right now. Whoop. Generally, every time I cook, I think about what size things are that I'm cooking. So this is going to get a little bit bigger, but that's the cavatappi. It's a nice little twirly pasta. Really big fan of this thing. It holds a lot of sauce. There's sauce on the outside, sauce on the inside. But we want our food to be about half the size of our pasta. If you're using like a macaroni, it's going to be probably twice the size of your pasta, but that's totally fine. Macaroni is great. Nothing wrong with using macaroni. But for this, I like the pasta to be nice and big. It's going to hold all the sauce. And then our vegetables are going to be, smaller and are going to be sort of an accoutrement. So these onions are a little smaller. That's why I'm using 4 or 2. I was expecting like a much bigger onion, which would have maybe been up to here. So that's why I was talking about cutting them into 3, but we're actually just going to cut them in half because they are smaller than what I was looking for. But sometimes sweet onions can just be like massive. So we're just going to cut those. And then to julienne, an onion is really simple. You want to cut basically around the globe like this. And so just to see what that looks like, we're going to do this. And again, you want about, what is it, a centimeter, I believe. And so you're looking at pieces that look something like that. Nice. They'll cook down really good. They'll get super soft. And some of them are going to stick to our pasta, which is what we really want. When we go to mix it, they're going to get all up in there. So you have a kind of like the perfect bite. You don't want to be trying to stab your pieces of onion, and you're just cooking for yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. I spent a lot of time cutting things perfectly in my life, and now is not the time to do that. Now is the time to cut things to make them tasty. And but don't worry too much about it if they're not perfect. Cut them how you like it, honestly. If you like big strips and you don't care about it sort of being all over the place, do that. If you like big chunks, like nice big square, go for it. If you can't, you're not going to hurt my feelings. You're only going to make your dish better for yourself. So cut it how you like. Let me turn this back up. Beautiful. So I've got those in the butter right now. Pretty low heat. We really are just trying to get the moisture out of them right now. So we're going to start heating them up to a point where the water is going to come out. And then once the water starts coming out, what we're going to be able to do is start cooking the sugar that's in them and getting it to caramelize. And that's going to have them change color. So a lot of times when I cook onions for soup, I don't often go to that sort of second step of caramelization. I usually am just trying to get the water activated. That's when they turn translucent like that, that's basically what's happening is the cell walls are breaking down, the water is coming out. That's why you can start to see through them. And so if we continue that process and cook more and more water off, the sugars in there start to heat up as well, and they will caramelize and change their nature. Makes the onions so delicious. These are sweet onions too, so we should have a really easy time with the caramelization. Some people will tell you can put a lid on this to steam them. That's a really great way to start the process, especially if you're doing a really long caramelization. Like, you can caramelize onions for like up to an hour. So if I was doing that, what I'd usually do is I'd have bigger pieces first off, but then I'd steam them first. That will really get them sort of cooked. And then you can turn your heat down a lot lower because you don't have to worry about cooking the onions anymore. They've already been steamed. You're really just worrying about caramelization. And so that really doesn't take a lot of heat at all. It just takes time. So these are great. My butter has already sort of changed their color a little bit just because I did brown it a bit on accident there, but that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. So you want to be just hot enough that you can hear them, but you don't really want that that sauté sizzle that you usually have. That you don't want that. You want more of like a low like distant waterfall instead of being like right up next to it. All right, so that's our pasta. I actually never really got this up to like a hard boil again, which is kind of weird. So I'm going to take a test, and what we're really looking for here is, again, like a super al dente. So I want to be able to put my teeth through it without getting like hard crunchy bits, but I don't want it to be completely cooked. So let's see what we do here. Oh, it's perfect. Awesome. Oh, that's so good. Oh my God, I love pasta. And again, I didn't salt the water. Feel free to salt the water if you want to. Totally up to you. All right, now you can see what I'm doing too, which is the best part of cooking. All right, awesome. So that's hot. We're not going to touch that. So we got some onions here. Just going to break them up. They're going to want to stick together, but just as they heat up, they'll start to get a little bit softer. And just sort of use the corner of your spoon or whatever right in the center mass, and they'll start to sort of pop apart into individual pieces. You want them all to have as much surface area to heat ratio as possible. Once you get that, oh, they just smell so good already. I don't know why are onions so good. So we use onions in a lot of food. Like they're in almost everything. I put them in almost everything because they're so good. They smell so good. They taste so good. I want them in everything. So I put them in everything. Let's just take a look. Yeah, we got a pretty good scene there. So these apples are really special. And you're going to notice that I probably have more apples than I should put in here. But again, I stink at recipes. I usually don't even follow my own. So these little tiny ones are wild apples that I picked up at the IGI premises today. I'm sure somebody planted the tree at one point, but they haven't touched it in years. So I feel like they're wild. You can even see there's like a couple of little bites on there. My grandpa used to say that the best apples are the ones that have the worms in them because they're very discerning worms. So anytime you see an apple that's being eaten by insects, that might be the best apple on the tree. And these big ones are actually from Ghost Island Farm. I don't think I'm going to use them. I think I might have enough, but they're just there for some backup. These onions are starting to smell sweet, starting to smell that butter. It's really fabulous. If you're cooking along right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So you may have seen in the recipe that I said flank your apples. So for those of you who don't know what that means, my favorite part, there's a lot of different ways to cut apples. You can cut them in quarters. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. This is a really good way to do them for snacks. You just go right down the center, keep the seeds in there. And then once you have the seeds, you just put them on an angle like this, and you just come in basically, and you cut the core out. Any of you who've had kids have probably done this for your kids. It's a really great way to sort of cut them quickly in a way that you can eat them. Big fan. I used to do this for years when I was cooking. It was the way I saw my mom do it. It was the way I was kind of taught. And it's great. You got 4 equal pieces, which is nice. I learned a really great method that takes less cuts. I love doing less cuts. It saves me a lot of time, especially when you're doing hundreds and hundreds of apples for something. So what we're going to do is we're going to flank it. So we're going to cut around the seeds. It's very similar to how I cut peppers, if you guys have ever seen that. We're basically just going to take out the outer flanks where all the meat is, and we're going to have 2 cuts that are the same and then 1 cut that's different. So let's show you what that looks like. We're going to cut basically right on the outside of where the seeds would be. That's our first flank, nice and big, beautiful, no seeds at all, which I really like. Then we're going to turn it, and we're going to try and cut as close as possible to the seeds again. I didn't do a great job on that one, but that's okay. So you see, you get basically this wedge when you're done. And if I did it better, there wouldn't be this seed over here, but they're also wild apples. So what are you going to do? And then the last one is just going to be your cut off that last little piece on the end. So you end up with 1 piece that kind of looks similar to what we did before. And then 2 of these nice big pieces, which honestly, I like a lot better. I like this better for a snack. I like this. You can put stuff on top of it. You can like grill it face down and get a really nice caramelization on here. Like put a little butter in your pan like we're doing the onions, and just once it's hot, and you, in this case, brown the butter first, just put these down in there, nice high temperature. They'll start to caramelize, and just some vanilla ice cream, whipped cream, like done. That's dinner, or rather dessert. Or I mean, you can have it for dinner if you want. So we got some flanks here. We're just gonna go ahead and flank all these. I think this is the right amount of apples, so I'm just going to go with it. That's my gut telling me. It might be a little more than I want. And if you feel weird about the apples, use a little less, but they really are going to be good. I promise you. Cooked apples, one of my favorite things. You don't want to cook them so they're like sausage. These are still going to have a lot of texture to them when we're done. And that's going to be the winner there. So just as you saw, just that same process. It's the first flank's really easy. Then you kind of want to just like figure out a nice little triangle there, looking for a nice acute angle, 45 degrees, and then the sort of flat one. So that's what your core should look like when you're done. 3. 3 is the magic number. If you've ever worked in landscaping, that's one of the things my aunt taught me. You got to plant in 3s or 5s or 7s or 9s. Never even numbers when you're doing plantings. It is apparently bad luck, but I like that. I like 3s generally. That's my go-to. All right, so now we're just going to cut these up. And again, you're looking for bite size. You don't want them to be the same size as the apples. So we could cut them in half like this. And we've got something that's kind of like that same size of the apple, but or the onion. But this is a taller bite, right? So we want to cube these. That way, you know, they're similar. They have a nice bite, but they're going to be not only distinctful from the onions in flavor, but also in texture in our mouth. So we're going to go for more of a cube on these. And again, they don't have to be perfect. You really just want them to be similar size so that they cook at the same speed. You really want, we're not going to cook these apples for very long because they are going to cook more in the oven. So we really just want, yeah, that's fine, to get them to a nice bite size. And if you're ever worried if something's bite size, try taking a bite. Perfect. Oh, that's so good. I've had a lot of crab apples in my life. My grandpa used to have a tree on his property, and these are probably some of the best crab apples I've ever had. It's apparently an old Golden Delicious tree. I don't know if any of you guys get the CSA at IGI. I highly suggest asking them about the tree. It's right there where you park. So good. So again, this is definitely too much apples. And by too much, I mean more than what's on the recipe. But I'm okay with that. I really, when I was first sort of thinking about this dish, it kind of came up into my head as less of a savory dish. It's almost more like we're trying to imitate like an apple crisp. Hence again, why we're using sugar and not salt, than a mac and cheese. So it's okay if it's going to be a little bit sweeter. It's okay if there's a little bit more apple in there. The apples really are the star of this. So do not be afraid to put as many as you like in there. In fact, you could even make this entire dish without pasta and just do the pumpkin cheese sauce with the apples. I bet you that would be absolutely delicious. We're not going to do that because I love pasta. But if you are gluten-free or whatever, take the pasta out, just cook the onions and apples, have the sauce, half the sauce, so you don't have so much. And I think it would make a absolutely fine dish. Beautiful. So that's about how much apples we are going to use here. Pasta looks beautiful, awesome. That's what I'm talking about. I'm just going to put that back in my pot and use that as my bowl. I found out that I didn't have a very big bowl. Ooh, that's hot. So I skipped that one. All right, beautiful. So we're just letting these onions caramelize here. They're just starting to get some color right now. They turned translucent maybe a minute ago, and just the edges are starting to get a little bit of brown on it. But we're gonna let this go for a bit, and we're gonna, oh yeah, just a touch. Cooking with electric is a unique experience. If you've never done it before, good luck if you ever have to, because it is so finicky. You really have to plan ahead. It's crazy. Just so you can see like how little I actually cared about the size of mine. I've got a bunch of apples, whoops, different sizes. It's not going to really matter in the end. When they cook, they're all going to get a little bit smaller. And I also kept all the skins on there. I love skin. Skin is probably one of the best parts of anything. It's the protector of the vegetable or the fruit. And so it's got a lot of nutrients in it because it has to be tough and thick. They usually have a lot of fiber in them, which is great for you. So if you can handle the skin, keep it on. Potatoes, apples, absolutely anything. Skin on bread even. I mean, obviously that's a little different, but like any of the skin that you can put into your life is going to enrich you. I love skin. I stand by skin. I will eat just skins. I mean, potato skins are delicious, honestly. When you stuff them, same with apple skins, you can fry them to make a really good like sweet treat to put on top of ice cream. They are often thrown away, hopefully composted. But for me, in my house, I eat them whenever I can. So don't be afraid of skins. They're delicious. Cool. So we're just gonna wait a little bit on the onions. If anybody has a question, it looks like there's a couple questions. Awesome. Wondering if this, let me see if I missed anything before that. With full amounts and divided when cooked, bake and have. Oh yeah, totally. You can definitely freeze this. 100%. Mix all the sauce and apples together. Portion it into two different whatever you're gonna bake it in. You've got like a nice glass like baking dish slash Tupperware. Put it right in the freezer, and you can take it right out and bake it right from frozen. Absolutely delicious. Variety of apple doesn't really make a difference. I would use the apple you like best. I'm personally, these are Golden Delicious, but anything that's crisp and sweet is gonna hold up better to cooking. Cortlands are really nice too. I would probably not use a really soft apple like a Gala. Galas are kind of crisp, but like I definitely wouldn't use a Macintosh unless you like really like Macintosh, because then you're gonna end up with basically applesauce, which, don't get me wrong, would be great. Applesauce and pumpkin mac and cheese. That's like a whole nother thing. We could totally do that. I don't see anything wrong with that. But use the apple you like the best, whatever that happens to be. But I would suggest a crisp, sweet apple. You really want something that has a lot of sugar content in it. So, guys, of course, this Golden Delicious, one of the sweetest ones. Crispins are really good. I mean, obviously, Honey Crisps would be good, although most people would yell at you for cooking them. They say they're too tasty. But you can't go wrong as long as you're choosing something that you enjoy. Most apples, you know, to people who don't eat a lot of apples, they all kind of taste the same anyways. But I would definitely stay away from a soft-bodied apple. So, you know, Macintosh. What else is really soft? I mean, Macintoshes are so soft. But yeah, just like take a bite. If you get that sort of crisp noise when you bite into it, then you probably have the right apple for the job. Oh yeah, Empires are great too, for sure. But I mean, like even like a red, well, so Red Delicious, you know, obviously when I was growing up, I feel like we had Macintosh and Red Delicious, right? And then there was green apples. That's so, like, even a green apple would be great for this. But nowadays we have so many amazing ones, thanks to like places like Cortland, or not Cortland, Carlson Orchards, you know, just so many different kinds of apples. It's beautiful. All the different sort of technology we have now for grafting is just like mind blowing. I love it. So it's so nice to be able to like have not only, you know, a texture you like, but also a flavor profile. It's really a beautiful thing. So yeah, Empires are great. They always remind me of like Red Delicious, even though their flavor is totally different. But this Red Delicious is such a dark flavor. I know like there's a particular application for it that's perfect. I feel like it's really good for cocktails. Like if you were to make like a syrup or something out of it, it just has such a darkness to it that always turned me off when I was a kid. But it turns out that I do like apples. I just don't like Red Delicious. Sweet. Yeah, if you have any more questions, please pop them in there. We're really just waiting on the caramelization. This is, like I said, this is like a slow meal. You don't have to wait for these to caramelize. You can just cook them. They don't have to be perfect. This is just like how I wanted this one to go. It's really like a lesson in sort of patience and relaxation. You know, have some friends over, make some pumpkin mac and cheese, show them how cool you are. And I think those might actually be ready to rock. Let's take a peek. Whoop. All right, there we go. Cool. We got some color in here. That's what I'm talking about. Just the edges. We're not going for a full caramelization here. We really just want to start the sugaring process happening. Again, everything that we're doing right now is going to cook more in the oven. This is going to end up in the oven for about a half an hour. So everything can have a chance to sort of finish what it started. But we just want to make sure that these have the best life possible. So we're getting a little bit of actual char, not char, but you know, the pan is getting hot enough here because I'm using a cast iron that we're getting some actual brown spots. We're also just getting some caramelization, and it starts to smell different too. I hope you guys can see that. So we've got some spots right there that are kind of just like that got really hot. And then we've got some spots over here where this onion is just completely started to change color. And what'll happen too is those spots where we got some of that darker color will start to dissolve. That's all just sugar, so it dissolves in water. So it'll start to dissolve and start to mix in with the onions. And so the ones that cook more will start to mix with the ones that cook less, and they'll all start to become sort of a uniform, glorious color. Awesome. Oh my God, butter and onions. And I mean, like realistically, you can just eat this on toast. So good. I'm gonna go just a little bit longer. Beautiful. Okay. I like where we're at. So while you're here, let's shred our cheese while we wait. So I put my cheese, I forgot to show you guys my mise en place. Oh my gosh. So mise en place is really important. I usually start with this, but I didn't. I know I'm not using garlic. It's amazing. So let me show you the mise en place real quick. I had everything right here in front of me. It's always super important. Keep everything you possibly can within arm's reach while you're cooking. That means you don't have to do things like go to the fridge or go to your pantry or whatever you need to do. In this case, I purposely kept my cheeses in the fridge because I wanted them to be cold for shredding and for crumbling. But pretty much all the time, I take everything out I can before I start cooking. So let's get the cheese so I can shred it. And my brand new cheese. So I just picked whatever cheese I could. They didn't have already crumbled blue cheese, so I got Castello extra creamy, which I think will be really good. And then I just got yellow cheddar because I think it's going to really help to sort of accentuate that orange pumpkin color. And just I think it's going to be good. So I got extra sharp. You really want it to be super tasty and flavorful. And we're going for a full 2 cups. One of the things I learned when I was young from my father was that a pint is a pound the world around, except for the places where they don't measure with pints. And so this is 8 ounces of cheese, which is half a pound. So if I use 2 pounds, or if I use a full pound of cheese, that should be a pint, which is 2 cups. And that's how much cheese we need for this recipe. You could measure it after you shred it if you have like a big block or if you have shredded cheese. But I'm just going to put this full pound of cheese in there, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to do that now. I don't have any more cutting to do really, so we can kind of use our cutting board right now and get our cheese right on there. You can see my beautiful shredding technique. I perfected this making nachos. And yes, I am not using garlic on purpose. Garlic for me can be sweet. It's really nice when you use it in a sweet thing, but garlic tends to scream savory to my taste buds. And I really, again, want to accentuate how sweet this dish can be. It's almost going to taste like a dessert. It's not going to be dessert because that blue cheese is going to be like, nope, you're not dessert. You're not dessert. But when you first eat it, your mouth's going to be like, wait a minute, what is this dessert? And things are going to start developing as the salt of the cheese starts to happen and everything sort of moves about in your mouth. So that is why I'm not using garlic, because for me, it just screams savory. And I really wanted this dish to have a nice sweet experience. So I'm going to shred some cheese. I've got a couple different cheese graters. I got one called the Alley grater, which is really fun. It's super portable. But if I'm doing a lot of cheese, nothing beats a box grater. You can do this in your Cuisinart if you want to, especially since we're going to be using it later to make the oats. If you want to just pop it through on your shredding attachment and then switch over to your blade once you take the cheese out, like by all means, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You can also just cube it. I mean, we're going to melt this into a bechamel later, so it doesn't really matter if it's shredded. The shredding is really just going to help us to, oh, those onions are looking so good. Just going to help us to get it to melt really fast. So shredding cheese is maybe not my favorite thing to do. I think probably it reminds me of whisking cream for whipped cream. It's a necessary process, and it really, the product you get at the end is totally worth the time. But it's like repetitive over and over and over again. And for me, my hands always get so hot, so my cheese gets like sticky by the time I get to the end, which is part of why I kept my cheese in the fridge. So what I usually like to do to sort of combat that is I'll turn my cheese, as you just saw, as I go. And that helps when it starts to melt because of my hot hands to keep the edges fresh for me, so I'm not sort of sinking into my cheese. Oh yeah. So, and you don't have to worry about why is my cheese orange? If you ever asked yourself, why is my cheddar cheese orange? It is a coloring agent called annatto, which is a really, really beautiful Mexican spice. It is a seed, and the outside of the seed is this like beautiful bright red color. And it's usually used for achiote paste, which usually ends up going into a Oh, what's that sauce called? Like a red sauce, a red like enchilada sauce, achiote. And achiote is a whole bunch of different stuff in there with the annatto seeds. But annatto seeds are really, really fabulous. Super cool, like old school coloring technique for all sorts of things. Before we sort of got that standardized like red 40 or whatever it is. Annatto was the jam. And so that's what makes your cheese orange. So it's actually way more natural than you could have hoped. Although I haven't actually looked at Velveeta, so I don't know if Velveeta is annatto or not, but it's pretty classic red coloring. So these onions are starting to get pretty nice and colored. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my apples in there, and we're gonna start cooking them down. And we will wait. So we're gonna turn our heat up. We're gonna put our apples in. Perfect. Oh yeah. I'm just gonna spread them out over the top of the onions for now. I'm not gonna stir them in yet. And I'm gonna, because I'm using a pepper grinder, you could grind your pepper beforehand and then just measure it out. But I didn't do that. So I'm just gonna grind my pepper on top right now. I actually found out a really cool trick the other day that I'd never really thought of. If you hold your pepper grinder, I have a cool little pepper grinder. If you put it on the cutting board, it's way easier to grind than trying to hold it over your pan. You also don't get, a lot of people tell you you're not supposed to hold pepper grinders over the pan because the steam gets in there and it makes your pepper go bad faster. But the really cool part about this is not only is it easier to grind, but you can pick it up and see how much pepper you have, which is really nice. So I really like that as a technique. I'm not going to do it today though, because I like sort of grinding the pepper as I move the grinder around the pan. Like, it really gives me like a good visual, like, okay, I see how much I have. I see how much I have. And I just sort of cover the top. So there's a lot of pepper in this. You may have noticed. We're not seasoning the sauce with pepper. We're not seasoning the pasta with pepper. The pepper is going to be sort of my garlic in this. This is what's going to remind you that you are having a savory dish. You're going to be sitting there like, wow, why is this so sweet? Why is this so sweet? And then that pepper spice is going to crack, or you're going to get a little piece of cracked peppercorn in your mouth. And all of a sudden, your whole taste bud experience is going to change. And you're going to realize that you are, in fact, eating dinner and not dessert. Pepper is really nice because the flavor is not as forward. It tends to take a little bit to sort of activate in your mouth, as opposed to garlic, which not only smells crazy, but also is just like, usually for me, the first thing I taste when I put something in my mouth. So like I said, we're putting quite a lot in here. Use as much as you like. If you don't like pepper, just don't use it. You are not going to offend me, I promise. Get that pepper I did earlier. Bam. All right. And the apples are also going to get some cinnamon. So we're not going to put that in yet. We're actually going to wait till we do our first stir. And that is about to be right now. So your dish should start to make some more noise now that you've turned the heat up. That's good. We've moved from caramelization to more of a saute. The reason we're turning the heat up is we don't want these apples to cook completely. We really do want them to be a little bit soft still, or a little bit hard still when they go into the pan. The best way to undercook a hard vegetable or a hard fruit is to cook it with too high of a temperature. If you do that, the inside won't have enough chance to come to temperature. You'll cook the outside, the inside will stay hard. That's usually viewed as a negative thing, but in this case, that's what we want. We're going to have a nice apple that's mostly cooked. The inside will be hard, and then while it's in the oven, that last little bit will cook as it comes to temperature. And even if a couple of them sort of survive, and you get a nice little crisp bit of apple while you're eating this later, that'll be kind of a nice little experience for your mouth, and it'll remind you what you're eating. So this is just looking great. My onions are starting to brown even more now. My apples are starting to get cooked. We're going to let that go for a little bit. There. Beautiful. And one thing about mise en place, we were talking earlier, I took my milk out to get it started to get warm. We're going to be making a bechamel, which is going to require me to heat that milk up. But I'm going to put the milk into the pan after the pan's already hot. So if the milk's really cold, it's going to take all that butter and the roux and it's going to solidify. It's going to look really weird. It might even break the sauce. But if my milk is closer to room temperature, then I'm not going to have as much problem with that. It'll make the sauce cook faster, and it will also make sure that my sauce is a good consistency. So my onions and apples are just rocking. So I'm going to jump back over there, keep them rocking. Keep stirring. Again, you're really just trying to keep these up as gentle as possible over a pretty high heat. Oh yeah, baby. And if you want to know if your apples are cooked, eat one. I'll also tell you how tasty they are. All right, cool. Let's put some cinnamon there. So again, put as much as you want. I said a teaspoon, but really it's just a matter of sort of what you like. A little bit more. Perfect. I really love cinnamon. I put it in probably more things than I should. It often shows up to bite me as like a weird flavor, but honestly, I just love it so much. So it's never really a weird thing for me. Oh, it smells so good in here right now. It's just onions and butter and apples. I'm actually going to put a little bit more butter in here because that cinnamon's really dry and it just sort of sucked up all of my moisture. So we're going to put a little butter in there. That's going to help the cinnamon to sort of coat all the apples and the onions. And it's just going to make this shine. So I probably put maybe half a tablespoon in there. You know, put as much as you like or don't put any at all. All of the butter, all the fat in general in these recipes can be just substituted for something you prefer, whether that be olive oil or if I'm using olive oil, you could put butter in instead. It's just usually if I'm using olive oil, it's because I want something that has a fairly high heat so I can do a sear. But you really use what you like. That's always the solution. Oh, these look so good. Okay, let's take a peek at one of these apples. I think they're probably done. Yep. All right, so we're gonna turn that off, take it off the heat. We're just gonna let that sit. Oh, that apple's so good. So it's still a little crunchy, but this is gonna hang out while we make our sauce. So it's okay, it's gonna finish cooking. And I'm turning it off a little sooner than I probably would if I had a gas stove or if I wasn't using a cast iron, because I know this cast iron is gonna have some residual heat that's gonna finish those cooking. So that's really tasty. That makes me so happy. We're gonna pop right into our bechamel here. So first things first, 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to turn our heat back down to low, and we're going to get our butter melting. Oop. All right, so 2 tablespoons of butter. It's going to be 2 tablespoons of flour. This is a pretty classic roux. It's usually equal parts butter and flour, and then you put in you know, an amount of liquid based off how thick you want it. For mac and cheese, you usually want really thick. And in this case, we're going to add a lot of pumpkin. So we really don't want to go much outside of the 1 to 1 to 1. So that's 1 tablespoon to 1 tablespoon on flour and butter, and then 1 cup of liquid, in this case, milk. We are doing 2 tablespoons of flour and butter, 1 cup of milk, and then 2 cups of pumpkin. We talked about this a little bit earlier. A lot of that moisture is going to get absorbed by the pasta. That's part of why we didn't cook it so much. And then the pumpkin itself isn't completely liquid. A lot of it's fiber. So we are sort of accounting for that by not counting it as a full liquid. We're counting it as a partial liquid, which is why we're using 2 cups instead of just 1 cup. I just bought some pumpkin. You can obviously roast squash and blend it up. It works really well. Squash tends to be a little bit more liquidy instead of fibrous. The stuff you get in a can is almost all the time going to be really, really thick, you know. They just got a lot of pumpkin. I'm just going to crack that while my butter's melting. Let's see what we're working here. I haven't actually used this brand before, so I'm kind of excited. Oh yeah, so that's super thick. Look at how thick that is. Okay, that's good. So I actually might end up, we're going to see how this looks once I stir it up a little bit. I might end up actually just mixing that with water because that's way thicker than I anticipated. No, that might be okay. Yeah, so you could like eat that with a spoon, right? That's a lot thicker than I thought. If I roasted squash into this myself, it would have been almost like a soup, right? And so I think I will. I'll probably end up doing 1.5 cups of pumpkin and then 1/2 cup of water just to make it work better. So my butter's melted, completely liquid, beautiful. We're just going to put our 2 tablespoons of flour in there now, and make sure you have a whisk available. And we're going to be pretty much paying attention to this for the next foreseeable. So 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of butter. Whisk it up. This is pretty classic, you know, white sauce, roux. You can use this to cook, thicken pretty much anything, but classically it's used for milk sauce. It's not anything new. You may have noticed sometimes when you make a bechamel, people put nutmeg in it anyways. So it's not really anything new necessarily to use nutmeg. I'm actually going to use some whole nutmeg for this because I don't have powdered nutmeg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a microplane for that, and you just rub it along there, and it grates up really good. So get that ready. So we're ready to go on this bechamel. Make sure to stir your flour. I think I might have put a little too much flour in there, which is totally fine. Again, you can always add some water. It's not going to hurt anything. We're just cooking this down so that it doesn't taste like flour. We don't want our dish to taste like flour. All right, beautiful. So now we're getting into this milk. Crack that up. We're going to go 1 cup of milk right into that flour. Awesome. Get in there. Beautiful. You just want to whisk really good. Make sure you get it all in there. Make sure you get that butter and flour mixer dissolved. Again, that's part of why we want our milk to be closer to room temperature, so you don't end up with like weird chunky mess in there. And this was perfect, honestly. It's already nice and smooth, already nice and dissolved. So all we really need to do now, start to bring this milk up to temperature so that it thickens. I'm going to take this opportunity now while I have the time. It's already starting to thicken. I'm actually going to turn this down because I don't want it to thicken so fast. I'm going to take this time right now to add in my nutmeg, about a teaspoon, and I'm using fresh, so probably going to taste more intense. It smells so good. I love nutmeg. This is a really good way to do something to do for like on top of a cocktail or something like that. If you have like a really nice like milk baked pasta, I'm just gonna, already starting to thicken. Beautiful. Oh my God, this is so good. I totally would have passed culinary school. This is almost a perfect bechamel already. I didn't even really do anything. All right, so it's just like a nice thick sauce. It's white. It's basically everything you want. That was just butter, flour. I didn't even put salt in it. I'm actually gonna take this off the heat because I don't want it to cook anymore, but I want to get some more nutmeg in there. Whoops, too much nutmeg. Okay, just rinse that off. Oh my God, it tastes really good. Don't put the whole nut in there. And again, if you ever are worried that you put too much or not enough, just taste it. So I just tasted that cream on accident, and it tasted a lot like nutmeg, which is good. I still want a little bit more because we're making a sauce here, so the sauce has to flavor the whole dish. So if the sauce tastes like a little bit like nutmeg, then the dish isn't going to taste like nutmeg at all. So make sure you put enough in there to flavor the whole dish. Perfect. I'm actually going to toss that nutmeg because it got wet. I do not want it molding. Beautiful. So let's put this back on the heat. We're whisking, and we are going to put in our pumpkin. So let's start with a cup right now. Get in there. And you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's get our first cup in there. That first cup of pumpkin is going to be really important just for protecting your sauce. A bechamel itself will break really easily if it boils, but if you put something like this in here that has some sugar, actually, oh man, it's so nice. Then it helps sort of protect it, so you don't have to worry too much about. Oh, that's so nice. It just looks really good. I just can't talk about how good it looks right now. I'm going to show you guys in a second, I promise. So yeah, I think it's really, really thick though, and I haven't even put the cheese in there. So I'm totally going to just do what I was talking about and do about, half full of water and pumpkin just to thin it out a little bit, because it's going to thicken up a lot once we put the cheese in there. Awesome. And I need it to be moist too, because if the sauce isn't super moist, then I'm not going to end up with fully cooked pasta, because it's got to get its moisture from somewhere. It's not going to finish cooking if it doesn't have some moisture to take. Oh my God, yeah. This is so cool. Again, like I said, I usually would have, like last time I cooked this, I used squash that I had in the cabinet. My other squash I was going to use for tonight ended up molding, which kind of stunk. But it was so much more soft, you know, so it didn't thicken like this. I mean, this hasn't even come back to a boil again, but like, check that out. It just looks like cheesecake filling or something. I don't even know. Pumpkin cheesecake, of course. It's really thick. We're going to heat it up because we need it to be at basically a boil before we put the cheese in. I'm actually just going to hit it with a little bit more water. Right now, it's too thick. It wants to be thin enough that it will pour without sort of clumping up. There we go, that's better. Don't be afraid to put a little bit more water in there. We'll thicken up again once we put the cheese in there. Yeah, perfect. So hopefully you guys can sort of see just like how that moves in the pan. That's what you want. Thick, but not too thick. And the most important part, where did I put my spoon? Oh yeah. And I got pumpkin left to make, you know, dessert or whatever, or maybe make this again. Pumpkin's really good in everything. If you have pets, feed them pumpkin. They absolutely love it. It's really good for them. Tons of fiber. Great for elder dogs and stuff like that. So you can see it's like super thick, not moving anywhere in that pan. It's actually thicker than the last time I made it, which will be fine. It's not going to hurt anything. Awesome. Tastes like pumpkin. Tastes like nutmeg. And that's all it tastes like, which is great. That's what we want. We want it to taste like pumpkin. We don't want it to taste like cream. I'm going to turn this up a little. Oh, I did it. Yeah, wow, that's really good. It just tastes like pumpkin, which is what I want. So my apples are perfect. They're finished cooking perfectly. All right, so while that heats up, we're going to go ahead and finish shredding this cheese. See if we got any. No more questions. Cool. Oh yeah, like why is that spicy? The apples are going to be a little spicy because of the black pepper. See, this cheese has already started to get sort of mushy on me. Oh well. If anybody ever wants to eat my food, all you have to do is volunteer to shred the cheese. You can have as much as you want. Not that I hate it. It's just that I don't know. It's not my favorite. I would much rather do 100 other things. All right, cool. I just got a little bubble on this, so we're gonna stir it. Turn it back down a little. Oh, this is gonna be so good. The amount of excitement I have for this dish like cannot be overstated. If you've never had anything like this before and you are cooking along with me right now, you are in for a treat. When I came up with this, my brain was like, yeah, that'll be okay. When I ate it for the first time, my brain did one of those like yelling, whooping cries of pleasure. I won't do it now to save your eardrums, but needless to say, I was very, very happy with myself. And you will be too once you're done cooking it. It's just so good. And it's like pretty healthy for you too. Pumpkin's got a lot of fiber in it. Good for your pets, good for you too. All right, so this is good. This is starting to bubble, which is good. So since I'm shredding this cheese, I'm gonna start putting some in there right now. We're gonna go just a little handful. Boop. Just let that hang out, let it get hot. We're gonna stir it in, then add some more. Bloop. Hope you guys could see that. I don't know if yeah, you can see the pan from here. I don't know if you saw that little wisp of smoke escape. It's starting to bubble over there. All right. Hang on. Calm down. The cold cheese will lower the temperature again. That's why you want to make sure that you let it start to sort of bubble before you add the cheese in. You don't want that temperature to get too low. That's how your sauce ends up breaking. Also, you don't want it to get too hot. Cream sauces are kind of a pain, in a good way though. And this texture is just looking absolutely perfect. A little bit of water was really a good idea. I don't think this would have worked so well if I had use straight pumpkin. So happy we decided to do that. Nice big handful of cheese again. Finish this last bit. Oh no, I ate that piece. Oh, so good. Gotta make sure the cheese is still good, right? All right. Beautiful. Make sure to get it all. Whew, sweaty in here. So I really like using this shallow pan for my bechamels and for my cream sauces. I like the sort of amount of heat that can get added, and I like the way that I can stir it. But use whatever you have. I think this is an 8-quart. So you're going to want to have at least an 8-quart. And again, you can cut everything in half if you want to. This is going to be a pretty saucy dish. And again, that's on purpose because we are going to finish cooking our pasta in the pan. So I'm going to take my apples. I'm going to go ahead and put them in my pasta in this big pot over here. Let me just show them to you real quick before I do that, just so you can see what we're working with. It's nice. You can see the cinnamon in there. Some of that color is caramelization. Some of that's cinnamon. It's all beautiful. Oh, it smells so good. Awesome. Don't need that anymore. The sauce is looking perfect. Just a beautiful orange color. And again, that's why I chose that orange cheese. Just we've been putting normal white cheddar in here. By the time we got to this point, it's gonna be like a pale orange, and that's just not what we want. We want a really dark, deep orange, so that when it bakes, even it's gonna just like blow up, you know, our Instagram feeds or whatever we want to do. All right, awesome. Don't need you anymore. Don't need you anymore. So when I usually start to put stuff away, get ready for my next step. Got some oats here. Going to be for our beautiful crumb topping, almost like an apple crisp, like I was saying. You can use, usually crumb toppings use butter. We're using cheese, which is like butter, but way tastier. Beautiful. It's got another bubble there. Put the rest of the cheese in there. Perfect. Make sure you don't waste any. Get in there. Stir, 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 stir. Oh yeah. Make sure you scrape your sides. Don't want any pieces of cheese getting stuck in there, pieces of flour, anything like that. You're just going to stir this until it heats back up again, and you get that first little bubble of boiling. It's going to make sure all your cheese is melted. Hi, kid. My kitten's trying to get me to play with her. What do I need? I need a spatula. All right, sweet. Let's see if I can grab her, actually. Hey, kitty. You want to be on TV? Come here, you cuteness. Look at how cute she is. Her name is Biscuit, and she's the cutest. She's also an absolute terror. All right. Sauce is getting almost perfect. You're able to tell that it's almost done because it's just going to look really smooth. Let's show you again. I mean, there's like quite a lot here, and that's okay. We love a lot of sauce. See, it's nice and smooth. Got that nice goopy. That's the cheese. It's perfect. This is the point where I will try it and make sure it tastes good. Also, just make sure, you know, it sort of coats your spoon the way you want it to, not going anywhere. Yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, that's good. It tastes like pumpkin. It tastes like cheddar. I can still taste the nutmeg. Everything we want, basically. It is the flavoring agent, you know? And that's what you want. Like, if you want to add salt, now's the time. You're going to want to put it in this sauce. You could have salted your water. You could have salted the onions. I honestly don't like to salt them usually. Yeah, so much easier when it's cold. But this is the best thing to salt. If you're going to salt anything in this dish to get that flavor up, put salt in the sauce. Sauce is going to permeate everything. It's going to get inside everything. So that's what you want to salt if you want to add that salt to the dish. Now's the time. I would suggest a tablespoon. It's a lot of pasta. It's a lot of sauce. That's the most I would put in. The cheese is already salty. The blue cheese is already salty. So, but if you want to salt the dish, this is the time to do it. Put it in the sauce right before you put it on the pasta. Put milk away. I think I just heard my first bubble, so I think the sauce is done. Come on. Oh, wait, I'm gonna measure out my oats. So I've got a little Roux over here, also known as a Cuisinart. Food processor, whatever you call it. We're going to use that to blend up our oats because much as I like oats, big oats like that don't make the best crumb. And I don't want to use a lot of flour. A lot of times crumb recipes will use whole oats like that, but they'll use a lot of flour. And for me, I don't want to use a lot of flour. I want to use oat flour. And so the reason we're blending these up is we're going to kind of make a little bit of oat flour, but then we're also going to have some oats in there. And you can always add more. We're going to start with half a cup. I'm definitely adding more than half a cup. I'm kind of over measuring there. We'll see if we end up needing more. I don't need all this blue cheese. I think I'll probably need like half of it. So I'll try and cut that right now. It's still on. Oh, blue cheese is so good. If you don't like blue cheese, I'm sorry. So I think half of that should be good. Again, it's supposed to be like a quarter cup. So like that's probably closer to half a cup, but I'm not going to tell anyone. I really love blue cheese, like a lot. So I won't put it all in. We're going to crumble it into the oats later. Sauce is almost done. It's really, this last bit's always the hardest part because you just put a lot of cheese in there, right? So it's trying to get back up to that 212 boiling temperature, and it just takes a lot of time. You're stirring it, which cools it down. You want to stir it. Don't like stop it just because you want it to boil. Stir. It's very important for any cream sauce to stir as much as possible. Very close. If you tasted it earlier, you may have noticed it is a little bit gritty. That's going to start to change as it cooks down. Oh my God, that's so good. Okay, cool. Oh my God. Whew, I'm excited. So we're going to blend some oats. So you saw what they looked like when they went in there. It's oats, it's basically oatmeal. We're going to blend them. I'm going to show you. You're just pulsing it. That's pretty good. Cool. Show you what they look like now. So now they look like this. They kind of look like a little bit of flour, but there's still some oat pieces in there. So that's about right. I actually feel like I may have led you all astray. I'm going to make a little bit more crumb than I have in the recipe. I used a different pan last time. I used like a deeper pan, and I'm using my big, whatever, like 12 by 8 this time. And so I think I'm going to want more crumb. And so I think I'm going to make more crumb. And that's really easy. I think I'm just going to double the recipe. So just going to do another half a cup of these oats. And if I have too much crumb, that's okay. It's blue cheese crumb. That sounds delicious. I'll just put it on top. So modified recipe. I'm basically just doubling the recipe. I'm not going to double the sugar. I'm just doubling the oats. And again, in the recipe, I said, you can always add flour if it's kind of soft, but I also was just talking about how I don't want to put flour in here. So I think that's perfect. So it should look kind of like a flour, but there's little pieces of oats in there. You're in good place. So awesome. This sauce has now boiled. We are going to call that a go. Before we finish this crumb, I'm going to show you the coolest thing ever, which is going to be this pasta in the dish. So let's get myself my spatula, get my bowl, which in this case is actually just a Chinese pot that I cooked the pasta in. Show you this top here. This is the most important part. Let's actually get it real close. This is probably one of the best things ever about making any cream sauce. I really hope you can hear it. So nice. So just pour it all in there. It's actually good. I did that. It was just about to burn. So that's nice. Oh my God, it smells so good. Hitting those apples and heating them back up again. ASMR for you guys. All right, here we go. We're gonna stir this up and then put it into our pan. Finally, let's cool down. Awesome. So when you're stirring, if you can, go into the bottom and stir. It's almost like a fold technique. If you ever made, folded egg whites or something into like a meringue, you want to fold, especially for mac and cheese. You don't want all of those beautiful pieces of apple we work so hard to get mushed up. Guys, this looks so good. All right, so just gonna show you this real quick. I hope you can see that. Yeah, look at that. Just look at that. It just looks kind of like boxed mac and cheese, right? Because it's all orange and stuff from the annatto and from the pumpkin, but this is anything but boxed mac and cheese. Oh, yes, great success. Okay, so that's good. Just gonna scrape that off. Have a little taste test of whatever the scrapings are. I think I got cheese all over my beard. That's gonna be really good. I can taste the apple. I can taste the pumpkin, which is really important. Pumpkin oftentimes gets put in things just because it's cool, and then you can't actually taste the pumpkin. What you end up tasting is the pumpkin spice. And pumpkin spice is really great. I love pumpkin spice, but honestly, I want to taste pumpkin. When I say pumpkin, I want pumpkin. And that's why I put 2 cups of pumpkin in this because, well, I guess a cup and a half at this point, but we want to taste pumpkin. We don't want to taste pumpkin spice. We want to taste both, honestly. But so many times people say pumpkin, pumpkin, pumpkin. All you're really tasting is pumpkin spice. And that's just not fair because pumpkin is delicious. It's really good for you. Like I was saying before, it's got tons of fiber, tons of vitamin A. It's basically sweet potato on like steroids. It's amazing. All right, so that's perfect. I'm gonna pop that right in there. Just smooth it out real nice. That cavatappi is gonna give it some really nice texture. And as this cooks, the cavatappi is gonna start to collapse and suck in that sauce. As the sauce gets hot again, it sort of liquefies. Beautiful. That's done. We are reaching, whoopsies. Uh-oh, got myself trapped here. All right, there we go. We're reaching the completion of this fabulous dish. So we're just gonna pop ourselves down right to there. And so we got our oats. We're gonna add some brown sugar in there. Again, this dish is meant to be a bit sweet. So just a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Now, like I said before, I did double the oats, but I'm not gonna double the sugar. I really don't wanna have so much sugar in here. It's just enough to make things taste good. Let's mix that up with your oats. Oh yeah, super good. Get a little flour. We're gonna add the flour after we add the blue cheese. And we're really just gonna add just enough flour to make this into a crumb that we can put on top. So blue cheese, you're just gonna crumble it up. Make sure to go a little bit higher there. A little closer, perfect. You're just gonna push it with your fingers like this and crumble up into nice big pieces. Again, this is much easier if it's cold. This did sit out for a little bit, but that's fine. Just go to town, have fun. You're gonna hopefully get it all off your fingers when you start touching those oats. This is kind of like making biscuits. You ever made biscuits? You're basically cutting in cheese instead of butter to your oats. So just sort of squeeze it, right? Like together, you're pressing the cheese into the oats and making a really nice crumble here. It's going to be a little bit dry. The idea is that the cheese is going to melt and it's going to hydrate the oats while it's in the oven. And I am a dummy and totally forgot to put my rosemary in here, which is just pretty classic for me. So what I'm going to do is once I get this crumbled up, I'm going to chop up some rosemary and I am going to just put it right in there. and everything is gonna be fine. So this actually turned out pretty perfect right on the first go. I think that's because I added some more of those oats in there. If you would use the flour like the recipe, I bet you probably would have ended up with something similar. I think that's what I kind of what I had anticipated. I'm actually going to put a little flour in here. This is a little sticky. I like it a little more floury. Perfect. So you can just, so you can see, that's like what I got right now. It's almost like an oat ball. You could definitely like put it together. You want it to be a little drier than that, so it acts more like a crumb. All right, so let's grab some flour here. So we'll just go. Yeah, there we go. Now we're getting crummy. And you know, play with this. You know, if it's too wet, add some more oats or add some more flour. If it's too dry, add some more cheese. You know, put some butter in there if you want to. Melted butter is not going to hurt this at all. It's going to make it better, in fact. But it really is a matter of sort of what you want. You can just use panko breadcrumbs if you want. I'm not, again, not going to hurt my feelings. Whatever's easiest for you, whatever you think you're going to like. It's going to have a weird color. That's because of the blue cheese. And this is looking good now. So you can see it's a crumble, right? It falls apart pretty easy. It's a little sticky, but not so sticky that I have giant chunks like I showed you before. That's what we're looking for. That's kind of the same thing you'd be looking for if you're putting it on top of an apple pie, for instance. Only problem with that is there's no rosemary in there, but we're going to fix that right now. All right, just a quick little rosemary experience. So you take some rosemary. If you guys haven't seen this with me before, let's see, how much do we want? Maybe 1 sprig. We'll do 2. I like rosemary. Picking herbs is a lot of fun. It's a really useful technique. You hold it up at the top here, nice and gentle. You make a little catch, and you just pull them right off. And the tip is usually pretty tender, so you can just snap it off. Let's do that again. Oh my God, this smells so good. Pull it right off. Pop the tip. And then rosemary is kind of hard to chop. You just kind of want to bunch it up as much as you can. Part of why I actually said put it in the Roboku is it'll do all the work for you. Just run your knife over it. Chop, chop, chop. You'll eventually get what you're looking for, and it just smells so good. Oh my gosh! And you can use any herb you want. You know, classically, pumpkin goes with sage a lot. So you could definitely use sage. You could use thyme. I absolutely love thyme. It goes good in everything. You could use pretty much anything you want. You can't go wrong here. Maybe you could, like mint might be a little weird, but hey, I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do. We're making pumpkin mac and cheese right now with apples in it. So if you want to put mint in it, like put mint in it. Maybe you're the one who's going to have the chef show, you know, next week. So do what you want to do. As long as you think it's going to be tasty, give it a shot. If it's not tasty, at least you've learned a lesson. So we're just going to mix that up again. Now we got rosemary in there, which is what we wanted. It's going to make it smell really, 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 really good. And then all you got to do is just sort of crumble this on top, just like an apple crisp, right? This is going to look like an apple crisp when we take it out of the oven. People are going to be like, what did you make? And I'll be like, I made apple crisp. Blow their minds. Get it right to the edges. You don't want really any pasta showing if possible. This will make a really nice sort of crust on top. Beautiful. How does that look, guys? Are you excited? Pop that guy in the oven. We're not going to bake this here today because honestly, I don't want to keep you guys for another half an hour while it bakes, but pop it in the oven, you know, 450, probably a little too hot. Depends on how your oven runs. You really want to be like around 375 for about a half an hour. Just check on it every now and then. You want the sides to bubble and you want the top to be nice and crispy brown. And then it's done. Take it out, scoop it out, try and keep it in like nice. If you want to let it cool a little bit, it'll start to solidify and you can get nice little chunks that almost look like an apple crisp. If you really want to mess with people, whip up some sour cream and put it on top like a bit of whipped cream. That would be really tasty and also would just be kind of a fun sort of experience for your mouth and your eyes. But guys, that is the dish. That is our pumpkin mac and cheese with apple. Nice big serving there. Keep your family happy. Really blow their socks off and make them feel nice and seasonal.
Chris, that's gorgeous.
Thanks. I'm really happy about it.
What did you say to cook it at again?
375 is what I would do. You can do
For
350.
about 30 to 40 minutes, just till it gets bubbly.
Yeah, but it'll be bubbly on the sides, and the top will melt completely, and the oats will sort of get crispy, almost like just like what you'd expect from like an apple crisp or any like a crumb top pie. You know, that's basically what you're looking for on the top. The pasta itself will cook for as long as possible. The top is really going to tell you when it's done. When the top has got that nice crispy top, then you're good to go. And you can always, put it higher up in the oven, or even broil it if like you hear like it's been half an hour or been 40 minutes and it's still not done. Like, I'll put it under the broiler for a bit just to get that brown. It really is going to help give you some nice flavor. Yeah, guys, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for hanging.
That's amazing. Just give us a little hint of next month, because I know you've got something special.
Yeah, so next month is going to be something that we cook a lot in fancy restaurants. It's a how to describe it best. It's a very fancy application for something that that is really just so simple, and you can use it to beat people. It's like a club. So you're gonna absolutely love it. I think that's actually what the name means in French. I'm not 100%, but you can. It's so much fun and it looks so good, and it's very much in line with the season. In fact, you all might want to use it for the upcoming holiday. I think that'll be just about it for my hints.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's going to be November 18th.
Yes, indeed, right in between our 2 holiday weeks there. So
yeah. And it's if there are any leftovers from that dish, we'll be having them.
Exactly. It'll be super tasty. Thanks for showing up, guys. Check out everything on the Accoutrements Library YouTube page. And, if you're ever interested sort of what I've been doing in my life over the pandemic, I'm not writing there anymore, but the Trash Panda EPL.wordpress is still a really, really great resource to check out. So please do check it out. There's a lot of great things on there just to cook and eat. If you ever have no idea what you're doing for dinner, check it out. It might help you out. But I know what I'm having for dinner tonight.
Yeah, and we all wish we were too.
Yeah, right. Hopefully some of you have cooked along with me and are going to get to experience this beautiful new thing.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks everybody for coming. Bye-bye.